This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. This episode is part of the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World, produced in collaboration with renowned, fair-minded subject matter experts who provide strategies that enhance critical thinking, increase civic engagement, and foster healthy pleasure to boost personal well-being and relationship satisfaction. You can also discover more unique bonus content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we are exploring existential flexibility, brain food for a resilient and healthy mind, with my guest, Dr. Shai Tubali, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Leeds and a leading authority on mental flexibility and self-development. His work combines psychology, philosophy, yogic traditions, and Eastern thought and practices. Shai is an award-winning author who has written more than 20 books in 13 languages. The most recent are Llewellyn's Complete Book of Meditation and The Transformative Philosophical Dialogue. And I am so grateful to have Shai in the house, who blends intellectual rigor and spiritual insight, inviting us to examine existential questions and explore profound dimensions of the human experience. Welcome, Shai. Thanks for joining us today.
What an awesome introduction, Lisa, and I'm so delighted to be with you today and to have this dialogue.
Me too. Let's get to the point of dialogue and why dialogue has become so difficult and gone so wrong today.
Yes. Dialogue exactly is the place that the environment or the situation that puts to the test our degree of reactivity. Reactivity means the places, the predetermined places from which we already know our answers, our convictions, our opinions. We already know what we're going to say, and we're actually formulating our answers while hearing the other talk. So we are basically, dialogue is the environment in which we examine our ability to truly listen or our level of reactivity. There is this term that I love so much, and that's I'm all ears.
Yes.
And for me, if we could really implement this or really go all the way with what that means, being all ears, which means that my whole being becomes an ear. It becomes a full state of listening. But for that, to truly engage in dialogue, I have to listen to the other. First of all, to have a common question, not divisive answers. I have to withhold, to delay my comparison, my labeling, and to truly let insights emerge from the gap between both of us, rather than just having our opinions heard, because that's not dialogue.
Okay, let's break this down a little bit further, and we can give some relevant examples. And we can take the climate in the United States at the moment as we lead into these elections and after the elections. People are very, very polarized. They almost don't want to hear what the other has to say because they've discounted them already without recognizing that the singular most common denominator that we have are being humans that occupy the same space, planet, land. And this is a problem.
Yes, but first of all, I would like to say that I think we have somehow accepted the world that is presented to us or that is designed to us for us by politicians. And politicians, they thrive on a divisive world, on giving us the feeling that the other side is nearly demonic. It's as if it's as if we all live in Lord of the Rings, and there is a Sauron over on the other side, and there is us who are the good, the enlightened, the bright side of reality. So politics, the way it is presented to us, has nothing to do with the real world, because, and I think really politicians, they drag us into a miserable world that we don't want to live in. A world that is completely oppositional, completely confrontational. So what we need to understand is that reality is complex. We see it also in our own personal lives. Our reality is complex. There's always something more to consider. So how come when it comes to politics, things are so starkly divided into the ultimate good and the ultimate bad? Now, there is one more environment that enhances this kind of divisiveness, and that is, of course, social media. Now, social media has brought us to believe that the world can be actually divided into like and dislike. You see, this is what I call the like culture. Everything is just divided into, yes, I like it. And when I like it, this means this is in agreement with what I already think, which means that I remain completely unchallenged. I don't really examine reevaluate my positions. My positions are not in a state of evolution. They're already fixed. So I create my own echo chamber, and I just surround myself only with those who agree with me. And this is how we live in this kind of world of sides that actually causes us enormous pain and isolation.
I had an interview recently with somebody who runs the United States League of Women Voters. And she was talking about social media. And when you know something is wrong, disinformation, misinformation, not the truth, do not respond to it. Do not, because it actually raises the status of this post because of its activity. So what she suggests is that if you feel the need to respond to it, you make your own post that gives the truth.
Oh, that's wonderful, because that's exactly the chain of endless reactivity, right? Because yes, I think that this information, we need to understand, first of all, when we begin to consider this information, we need to ask ourselves, what minds are susceptible to this information? Because you see, there's this kind of course, there are tools, wonderful tools that I use myself, that tools of information discernment, for information discernment, and we all need to cultivate these kind of skills to be able to have this kind of awareness of, well, I need to check that, and there are wonderful fact check websites out there. But the question is, what kind of mind would actually go to fact check? So you see, what kind of mind would have this kind of appreciation toward the truth, valuing the truth? And this is the point, and I think perhaps our discussion can slowly lead to that, is that I have a very clear distinction between two kinds of mind. One is I call the rigid mind, and the other is the flexible mind.
Yes.
And the rigid mind is actually first of all, the one that creates this information, and the one that reacts immediately to this information with rage, with anger, with hatred. So it's inherently susceptible to disinformation because it consists in reactivity and emotional reaction and divisiveness. So this is the point.
I've been studying this subject for about a year, and I'm by no means an expert, but I've interviewed a lot of people in this space who are studying mental immunity, cognitive immunology, and the idea that we don't question, right? That we don't learn these critical thinking skills is part of the problem, A, and B, because of the mind's predisposition to a negativity bias, which is such an early human response, right? To keep ourselves safe, that we're always on the edge thinking the worst because we might be destabilized by some crisis or perceived existential crisis, which I think is what's happening in part.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point that you're making, that an underlying factor that makes us avoid cultivating critical thinking, right? Because there are biases, there are certain actually emotional tendencies, instinctual tendencies that lead us to choose that which gives us a sense of security and confidence, overconfidence, being completely confident that the little that we know, even without letting the facts confuse us, is the absolute truth, the unquestionable, undoubtful truth. And this is because we seek security. We seek this kind of stability. And also we seek what is known as cognitive ease. Is this kind of, I don't need to rethink, to reconsider. I've already made up my mind. I've already attained understanding, because that keeps us on a certain automatic pilot. We don't need to reassess, to re-examine, to be in an awakened state of the mind.
And that, it dumbs us down. And it dumbs us down not only how we make our choices, let's say when we go to vote, but it dumbs us down in every other domain of life, right? Where we sort of have this learned helplessness, or we surrender our sovereignty to the least line of resistance.
Right. Yes.
That's scary. That's more scary than anything.
There is one example that I think is really striking, and that is Einstein, because we all agree that Einstein, he had one of the brightest, if not the brightest mind in the history of humankind. And he, when he was young, he had this extraordinarily flexible mind that was capable of turning the entire scientific paradigm upside down. So he had this audaciousness, audacity, but when he was old and he was presented with quantum physics, all of a sudden he became this kind of resistant, stubborn, old mind that wouldn't question that. And he said, because quantum mechanics, of course, presented the world as even more unstable than we ever hoped it would be. And then he said, God does not play dice. So that was this kind of absolute formula.
We need to take a pause, and when we come back, we will continue the conversation with Shai Tubali. To learn more or to connect, please go to X, and he is at Tubali, and that's Tubali on Instagram, Shai Tubali, and on Facebook, 7 Awakenings. You can find him on LinkedIn and at the website, shaitubali.com. Here comes the pause. We'll be right back. Well, it's that time of year again. Time to talk about holiday gift-giving goodies. In my humble experience, caring for my body and mind all help me harvest greater happiness. And with colder temperatures upon us, it's time to winterize the self-care routine. Sharing products that contribute to happiness is one of my favorite holiday habits. That's why this season I'm gifting my tribe Ouai's fabulous hair, body, and fragrance products. Thanks to Ouai hair care products, my once flat, limp, and dull hair is now bouncier and shinier. I use a rotation blend of several whey product combinations to tame my postmenopausal hair so that it looks and feels at its best. No matter your hair type, fine, medium, or thick, whey immediately upgrades your shower routine with shampoos and conditioners that deliver goodness for your hair. Whey offers a complete hair care solution that promotes fuller looking, healthier feeling, and happier hair for everyone. Whey's best-selling multitasking hair oil is one of my favorites. It smooths out frizz, seals split ends, and prevents color from fading. Regardless of hair type, Whey's hair oil rejuvenates your tresses to be healthier and more vibrant. It also smells incredible and leaves you feeling cocooned in a delicious perfume. This holiday, give way better gifts with bestsellers like their leave-in conditioner, detox shampoo, and fragrances. Get on your way to save for the holiday. Go to theouai.com for 15% off site-wide and enter promo code HH. That's theouai.com for 15% off with code HH. Now let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back, rejoining the conversation with Dr. Shai Tubali about existential flexibility, brain food for a resilient and healthy mind. So, Shai, in the previous segment, you were talking about Einstein and the inflexibility of his mind as he aged. And I would love for you to pick that up about the importance of this mental flexibility and continuing to feed our minds with proper brain food so we do not atrophy over time.
Yes, that's a wonderful way to put it, because that's exactly the point. Because for me, although again I'm of course an admirer of Einstein, I think that in this kind of example he illustrated what it means to eventually have your mind crystallized, which means that it becomes consolidated, calcified, and when the mind becomes calcified, it begins to stagnate, degenerates, and ultimately get old. And this is the subtle connection between mental inflexibility and mental aging. Because, because the point is, when I reach a state in which I know who I am without doubt, I know what I believe in, my views are final and fixed, and my stories of my past and present and future are all fixed, set in stone. This means that I'm doomed to degenerate. You see, because that's the time. It's like when like a flower that reaches its full blossoming and then begin to wither. So when we reach this state in which we stop being challenged, we stop developing, we become predictable, our minds move in closed circles, and we are only shaped by our past and by our experience of life, that's exactly the point where we get old. So
I love this. And let's give an analogy to this. And that is our physical body, right? If we do not exercise and we do not stretch and we do not take care to feed ourselves high quality food, our bodies begin to decompensate. And what I believe you're suggesting is the mind is the same way.
Exactly. That's wonderful, because you see, of course, our bodies are supposed, unless someone will come up with some brilliant solution, are supposed to disintegrate, to decay. This is a part of the chronological age. But the mind can remain what I call ageless, which means that it remains youthful forever. And this is only if the mind is not focused on accumulation, on gathering knowledge. Of course, we all gather knowledge, experience of life. We all know certain things. We all become experts in our fields. But if this makes our mind so overstuffed that there's no more room for anything new, for new insights, for the ability to receive something into my system, I actually become like a closed system. I no longer, I only have an output without any further input. And that's exactly the crux of mental aging.
Well, it could also liken it to a computer where the hard drive is full, right? That you cannot take any further information unless you delete some of the old data to make space for new. And I suppose that's what we should be doing, this mental housekeeping on a continual basis, right? To make room for new ideas, new experiences, and ideas that challenge our own ideas.
Yes, I just love what you're saying now. I want to give an example, if possible, because there's been a very intriguing series of studies about people's relationship with music. And I think that's really interesting, because what has been discovered through a myriad of studies is that somewhere at the age of 30 or 33, people stop actively searching for new music and artists. This means that pretty early in our life, we cognitively, subtly begin our process of aging. Now, I think there's no better metaphor for that, because think of it like that. When people reach at the age of 30, 33, they begin to rely on nostalgia. They only listen to those pieces of music that bring back memories from the past, that already trigger a certain predetermined response in their brains.
Wow. And that taps into that safety, the safety valve too, right?
Familiarity.
Familiarity.
Yes, familiarity
Yes.
is safety. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly.
I did not know that. And that's incredible.
Yes. Because I think it's a perfect analogy for a mind that begins to only listen to what it already knows, what it already recognizes. It doesn't want to be challenged by new tunes. So that's the first point.
Well, and this is the challenge for us, right, as individuals, is to continue to seek out new tunes, new music, new opinions, new conversations, because not only is it good for society, it's good for our own mental health and operation.
Exactly, because it keeps this keeps our mind in a state of awakening. It keeps it actually in an ecstatic state. I think that sometimes people they accept that their minds reach a state in which they feel quite dull. You see, it's as if they are in a static state without this kind of what I call the ecstasy of the mind. And that ecstasy is something that is available to us even when we are very old. And honestly, I think that when we reach our oldest age, this is where we need to reach the peak of the mind, being the most youthful and the most ecstatic in terms of our mental openness. And that is completely possible, but it requires cultivation, as you say. One, exposing ourselves to new things, challenging things, and two, making this kind of spring cleaning. And there are several different techniques that enable us to to cleanse, to purify, to purge our minds of old, outdated thoughts and beliefs.
Love that. We don't have time to do the mind purge here, but I'm inviting all the listeners to join us on our bonus episode because we're going to continue the conversation over there. To learn more about the work of Shai Tubali, please go to his website, shaitubali.com, and that's Tubali. You can find him on X at stubali, on Instagram and Facebook at Shai Tubali, and you can find him over on LinkedIn at the same place. And the books that we mentioned earlier, and I'll say them again, are Llewellyn's Complete Book of Meditation and the Transformative Philosophical Dialogue. Thanks, Shai.
Thank you so much for this delightful exploration.
Thanks for joining us today on Harvesting Happiness. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Dr. Shai Tubali, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day. Remember to be kind to one another, and don't forget to register and vote. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? You can listen to part 2 of this conversation and the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.